Welcome! I am the Kaiju no Kami. And you know what? 2015 was filled with a lot of really great movies. So much so that I'm actually going to give my list of my favorites, but I do want to note that there are some movies that I have not seen yet that I do want to see, such as Mr. Holmes, The Revenant, and Bridge of Spies. So my list could end up changing when I eventually see those movies. But as of this moment in time, here are my top 10 favorite movies of 2015. Number 10. Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F was a fantastic return to the Dragon Ball universe. It takes place a year or so after the Battle of Gods, and Frieza returns to get revenge for his past defeats. It was a fun movie with excellent comedic scenes and great fight sequences. Plus, it brought in Jocko. If you are a fan of Dragon Ball and you have not seen this movie yet, I do not know what you are waiting for. The only thing it lacks is a full-on plot like Battle of Gods had. Definitely a must-see for any Dragon Ball fan, and it is way better than what's going on in Super right now. Number 9. Avengers Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron was another great movie from the Marvel Universe. It was fun with some really great character moments, especially at the party and the banter that goes on between Cap and his team, followed by a boatload of action. Unfortunately, the CGI is quite bad and it doesn't really do anything different from the first movie, but still an enjoyable ride nonetheless. Not to mention it brings in a little bit more Thanos, which is always great in my book. Number 8. AntMan. This movie took me by surprise as I am not an AntMan fan at all. I went in expecting to be disappointed and what I got was an intelligent heist movie with a superhero movie inside of it. Lewis was a hilarious character who was comic relief done right, and the entire cast just puts their all into it. I wouldn't say it is better than Avengers 2, but it was nice to see a Marvel movie done on such a small scale again compared to the recent batch of movies where an entire world or universe is in peril. Not only that, but it does go to show that both Disney and Marvel can turn anything into a movie and make it work. Number 7. Spectre. Spectre had a lot to live up to after the phenomenal Skyfall, and while it did not deliver on everything, it still turned out a pretty solid Bond movie. At this point in James Bond's career, the only bad Bond movie is a boring one, which this movie is not. Christoph Waltz was great in it. I'll bet he was just playing himself as the villain. The stars of the show go to M, Moneypenny, and Q though, as every scene that featured them was top notch. Craig remained great as Bond, and the movie itself was just gorgeous to look at. That opening scene with the Day of the Dead carnival was so beautifully shot. And once again, it gave some great homages to the books and the movies of the past, but this time done a lot more subtle. Number 6. Mad Max Fury Road, or as I like to call it, Twisted Metal the movie. Fury Road was another movie I went into with low expectations and came out highly impressed. The visuals were great, the plot was light, but it was just a non-stop vehicular combat movie of which I have never seen done this well before on screen. Add on top that nearly every effect was a practical one, even the guy with the flaming guitar, and you have yourself one epically made movie. If you are going to make an all-out action movie, this is the way to do it. Number 5 is the most highly anticipated movie of the year. In fact, probably the most highly anticipated movie of the last 10 years. So you know what that is, right? If not, Star Wars: The Force Awakens. There is nothing I can say about this movie that hasn't already been said. Yes, it is a retread of the original Star Wars, but it still holds its own when it comes to new things. The characters are actually characters instead of plot devices, and Kylo Ren is one badass mother. He is exactly what Anakin should have been in the prequels. This is easily the best acted Star Wars movie too. And I do want to put this on record. I was in love with Kylo Ren's lightsaber when they first showed it last year. Number 4. For most of the year, this was actually my second favorite movie of the year, but it was pushed down to number 4, and that is Inside Out. It has been a few years since Pixar has given us something truly original, and the wait was well worth it. This nice little movie goes well beyond what one would expect from a kids movie and delves deep into the girl struggling with the loss of two emotions. There is so much here to love, as it is a bunch of jokes adults will understand while also keeping the kids entertained. The storytelling is quite deep, with a lot of underlying tones and symbolism that you won't catch the first time around. And I do have to say, watching this in a classroom full of kids who don't get the joke at the end about puberty is hilarious. Number 3. Well, we are down to the top 3, and this was pretty hard because these 3 movies can be interchanged at any moment. But my number 3 choice is Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. Every year a Tarantino movie comes out, you know it's going to be one of the best movies of the year, and The Hateful Eight continues to prove this. It was a strange experience to have a movie with an overture and intermission in the theater, but it also made the movie fly by quite quickly. Every bit of dialogue is done with such precision and care that it really adds tension to every moment. The acting is extremely top-notch, especially from Samuel Jackson and Walton Goggins. Oh, and like Spectre, this is a visual masterpiece. Number 2. And so, John, I said, why so green? Oh, hello. My number 2 pick is, well, I'm sure you guessed it, The Martian. I was kind of dragged to this movie, and I am so glad I was. It was absolutely brilliant, and Ridley Scott proved he still has it in him. This is easily his best movie since American Gangster, maybe even Gladiator. Matt Damon does an amazing job on his own, and the dialogue of this movie is hilarious. The Martian knows how to do a perfect balance of comedy and drama without one feeling forced over the other. That is not something that is easily pulled off these days. Its story is fast-paced and does not feel like the 2.5 hours that it is. In fact, I kept debating if this was going to be my number 1 pick or not, but I had to make a decision for this list, so I went with second place. There's not too much more I want to say about The Martian, but again, like Spectre and Hateful Eight, this movie is gorgeous to look at. The landscape on Mars is so desolate, yet detailed. Honorable mentions. Before I give you my number 1 choice, I do want to give some honorable mentions because these few movies were really good, and it was hard to not put them on my list. But with a top 10 list, you can only go with 10, not 14, so here they are. The Kingsman also took me by surprise at how well acted it was, and it was a homage to the spy movies of old. Also, the church fight scene was spectacular. I love me some Ghost in the Shell, and the new movie gave me more of what Arise started. It goes into detail of what happens to a prosthetic body when the parts are obsolete. If you are a fan of classic John Carpenter movies, then It Follows is for you. It has a great synth score, and the movie relies more on mood and music than jump scares and gore. Finally, The Gift is probably the closest thing we will ever get to a modern day Hitchcock movie. It is well acted with a lot of great suspense and twists and turns that keep you guessing. Number 1. And at long last, we come to my number 1 pick for the year. What movie is this, you may say? Well, I've already did Star Wars and The Martian. What else could there be? This movie took me by surprise. It is Ex Machina. Ex Machina was hands down the best movie I saw at the beginning of the year, and it continued to stay that way. The banter between Caleb and Nathan is done with such finesse that you never want to have their conversations end because they are so interesting. Add in Ava, a robot, and the Turing test, and the movie flows at a brisk pace that keeps you guessing on who is really testing whom. This is a movie that I kept thinking about throughout the entire year and wanting to revisit, and now that I have it on Blu-ray, I can. I also want to point out that something strange has occurred with this movie. The two leads are the guys that play Poe and General Hux in Star Wars now. That kind of made things a little bit interesting rewatching this movie after seeing The Force Awakens. And it was pretty cool. Well, that is all for my top lists for the year. I hope you have enjoyed this list, and feel free to let me know your favorite movies of the year. Until next time, have a happy new year. Bye.